Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. This is not going to be a video about crypto. It's going to be a video about the Dow Jones, which affects crypto, and it's worth being aware of what is taking place or what is going to take place on this chart. Now, I've made some previous videos about the Dow. Here is one that you can watch. This one is about the Dow and the 10-year yield, and I show how they're both doing something that is very interesting, a very interesting correlation, which I believe is still at play. This video, however, is going to talk about three separate structures or fractals from the past that it is my belief that the Dow has been following. So without further ado, let's get started. So my first structure that I would like to bring your attention to is this structure right here. So this is the run-up to the C19 crash. Now, if we were to copy and paste this structure over here, of course, we'll have to adjust it for today's timing, height, and depth, as it clearly is playing out on a larger time frame. Now, it's important to note that when a fractal repeats the timing, height, and depth, those parts of the fractal will be original. So the main idea will copy over, but the timing, height, and depth of it will always be original to the new iteration. So let's take this structure and copy it and adjust it to today's timing, height, and depth as much as we can. Now, I don't want to get too much into the weeds with adjusting it, but I want to show you that, yes, indeed, this structure, while there are some differences here and there, it is, for the most part, following what this run-up to the C19 crash did. So here we have the first bounce or wave, and this is where the timing plays out a little different. So we have essentially it does the same thing, small waves or smaller bounces, and then it launches into a new uptrend. So it is my belief that we are currently in that process. So I don't know exactly where we are in this structure, but it is my belief that we are likely approaching this peak. So we still may have some more room to go, more upward movement before it declines. Now, I don't know how this will play out. It's going to be original, whatever it does, even though the basic structure repeats. And the reason why it will have an originality to it, just like the rest of this has, is because of the timing, height, and the depth being original. So as you can see, there is this massive decline that comes after this peak is completed. Now, at a certain point, it's probably going to start falling, and you're going to see Twitter or X come to life with predictions of doom and gloom if this is anything more substantial than a small, slight pullback. However, it's most likely not going to be the peak. It's probably going to do something like this. Now, I can't be 100% sure, but this is what I would be looking for. A peak, then a pullback, and then a move back up, which potentially goes even higher, and then the real true decline comes. Now, this structure I would consider recent history. So recent history can serve as an excellent guide to what a chart, it doesn't have to be the Dow, it could be really any chart, is doing. The key thing to understand about recent history fractals is the chart can at any moment do something different. So that is the weak point of a recent history fractal being used as a guide. Now, I don't know how deep this decline will go, but it is likely going to be substantial. It may be less than this, it may be more than this. I don't know. So let's remove this fractal. Let's move to the next structure that I'd like to examine, and that is 1982 to 1987. So yes, this is another crashing structure, another run-up to a substantial crash. So what I'd like to do with this structure is copy and paste it onto today's chart, and we'll compare what happened between 1982 and 1987 to what is taking place on today's chart. Okay, so here is this fractal stretched out quite a bit larger. So I'm on a week candle. I was on a day candle previously. As you can see, while there are some differences here and there, the basic idea is playing out once again. Now, a lot of the differences really have to do with timing. So for instance, here we have a move up and then a pullback. Well, we have the same idea repeat over here. It just took longer to play out than it did when it played out in 1987. I believe this was 1987 at this point. Now, we are once again likely in the tail end of this structure. And as you can see, this structure also includes a sharp decline. Now, if this structure plays out like this, we would still have a decline, but then this next move up may not be as high as the other fractal suggested. So it could just be a move up and then bam, it falls. Now, to play the devil's advocate here, a lot of times this move up right here, this is a kind of a classic peak structure. This peak right here can sometimes be just like this. Other times it can go quite a bit higher than this one. So we need to be open to how this plays out, be flexible, because peaks, it's a really challenging part of a chart to predict. The way they play out, there are a lot of commonalities between peaks, but it's really the Wild West many times, especially when trying to predict something. So that is the 1982 to 1987 fractal compared to what is taking place. Now, one other thing that I'd like to point out, this structure right here, this wave, I believe it actually is all of this. And the reason why I believe that, if you look at this, so it moves up. There are two parts to this. There's this first wave and then this second wave. We have the same idea here. It moves up into this first wave, which is lower, and then it moves up a little higher into the second wave. That's exactly what it does here. So the timing, this is a good example of the timing playing out different, but the basic idea repeating. So this essentially would be like this, but pulling it all the way over here distorts other parts over here, and I didn't want to totally distort it. But you see the basic gist of what this structure is. All right, so now that we've examined these two structures, I'd like to examine the king of all fractals. Okay, so this is the last structure that we're going to look at, and this is really the king of all fractals. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Now, I'm on a month candle, so this is extremely zoomed out. This is big picture. Now, this is also at the very beginning of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So it starts in 1896, it comes to a peak in 1929, and then it crashes. So if we took this larger structure and broke it into substructures, we come up with 6 structures that lead to the peak and then 1 structure with the decline. So if we were to take, for instance, this blue box and we were to copy and paste it over here, now, of course, the timing, height, and depth plays out differently over on this side, but the basic idea, as you can see, repeats. Now, I did this rather sloppily and quickly, so please bear with me. I'll show you a cleaner version after we look at this one. So the next one is this purple box, and what does it do? Price moves up. We have the same thing that takes place over here. Now, the way I copy this, for instance, this move down is actually this right here. I did this a little sloppy, but as you can see, the basic idea repeats. Price moves up. It even has the pullback that we see here. We even have this wave right here, which we see over here. It then goes into the next structure, which is this gray box. So what does that look like over here? It's a consolidation, just like it is in this box over here. It just takes place on a larger scale. After this consolidation, price moves up in this red box right here. However, on this part of the chart, it moves up quite a bit larger. So we have that consolidation, and then bam, it really, really moves up. Again, this is on a month candle. This is a very zoomed out picture. This is the 30,000 foot view, or whatever that expression is. After which it goes into the next fractal, which would be this blue structure over here. Let's zoom in. This structure, which is a consolidation. After this consolidation, it moves into this purple box, which is the peak. So let's go back to where we were. So here is that blue consolidation and then the move up to the peak. Now, since this is on such a large time frame, I don't really have any granularity zooming in, but as we can see, we have followed the basic idea. We are near the very end of this structure. People, this structure has been over 90 years in the making. This is why this is the king of fractals. This thing is huge. It's the largest fractal that I am aware of, put it that way. What I'd like to do next is I'd like to show you a cleaner version. Okay, so here's the cleaned up version. So this is the structure we're copying. I took the time to measure the decline that takes place. So this was an 89.51% decline. Now, I could be off a little bit on that. As you can see, it looks a lot cleaner over here. Now, the way I did that is I took the time to break each part of the structure to match. So this move up right here, I matched to this decline right here, I matched to this decline. It took a bit of work to do this. I could even go further in the weeds, but I don't want to. Once you adjust it for the timing, height, and depth, it becomes a very close match to what was taking place in the run-up to the 1929 decline. So as you can see, it looks like a clean match. Now, I don't know how low this will go. What I did is I just basically copied what took place in 1929. I'm not saying that it's going to crash the same amount. Odds are it's not. In fact, I'm a little off. It should be 89.51%. It's just a rough estimation. It could go less than this. It could go more than this. My point in all of this is to show you, once cleaned up, it is actually a very close match. Now, I don't know how high this will end up going before any decline like this, but I would venture to say this: regardless of how high this actually moves up, remember the timing, height, and depth, that's going to be original. What comes after is going to be most likely this. So here is the conclusion of this video. So we have this massive structure that's taken over 90 years to complete. It's followed it. Once you adjust it for the timing, height, and depth, it's followed it very closely. To think that we are going to escape this when it has done everything else is not sound thinking. Now, we also have the 1987 crash, which is a very similar structure where it moves up and then it has this sharp decline. This is a type of structure that the Dow Jones produces. It doesn't always produce it. So for instance, in the 2008 decline, it did not produce this type of structure. That was a different type of structure. However, the structure that we see printing here tends to have or has these sharp declines. We see that in the 1987 one. We also see it in the C19 fractal. What we have is this type of structure that leads to this type of decline. That's what the big picture is. That's what the smaller pictures are. This 2007 type decline is not what we have coming down the pike, most likely. So my conclusion is we are near the end. We don't know how high this will end up going. It could move up, pull back, move up again. But once this peak is sorted out, I would prepare for something similar to this. So here we are zoomed in. I'm on a day candle. I have the C19 fractal on here cleaned up. I also have the 1929 fractal. The one that looks real jagged is the C19. The one with the large lines, that's the 1929 one. Look at this decline. They are essentially the same decline. One just played out on a very small time frame. The other one, the 1929 one, which is the red one, played out on a much larger scale. So I just added the 1987 crash. Now, this 1987 one is a little different, but as you can see, it's also quite similar. So they all have a very similar decline that comes with this type of structure. Again, the takeaway is that with this type of structure comes this type of decline. Therefore, we should not be thinking in our minds that it's not going to be something like this, because what history has to say is that this is the type of decline that comes from these type of structures. Now, I don't know when this will take place. We're beginning to approach the peak. How this peak plays out is going to be challenging to predict, but we have two structures that we can zoom in and see how they have two parts to this peak. In other words, the first peak, it pulls back, and then it moves back up to the final peak. I would be prepared for something like that. However, I would also remain flexible. How it plays out is yet to be seen. When this plays out is also yet to be seen. I don't know timing, so don't put too much weight on how I drew this. It could play out sooner. It could take longer. I don't know. The way it plays out is going to be original, so just be prepared for some original iteration of something similar to this. So this is one part of the puzzle. I just did a video on oil. I did other videos on inflation, on unemployment, on gold. These are all pieces of the puzzle. And of course, there's crypto. It all fits together. Now, how it all plays out is yet to be seen. But most likely, at least the way I think it's going to play out, is we are likely going to see a crypto bull run before this decline takes place. Again, that's speculation. We'll have to see how it plays out. Well, I hope this video was interesting. I hope you found value in it. If you did, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But if you did enjoy this video and you'd like to see more of this type of analysis, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. I'll continue to follow up on this chart as it continues to develop. Folks, despite this shocking chart, the way it looks, as a Christian, I'm comforted by the concept of God can make good come out of bad situations. I also know it's possible to prosper in situations like this. So it's not all bad, or at least it doesn't have to be bad. Please balance out the opportunity that exists with this doom and gloom chart. You know, I'm not a bear. I'm actually bullish on this chart right now. I think it's going to go up more. But I just know that this structure is likely at play, and I have a YouTube channel that focuses on chart structures, and it would be negligent of me not to at least talk about this at some point. So this is your warning of interesting times ahead. Make hay while the sun shines, and plan in your planning for this potential possibility. We don't know how it will play out, but it is a possibility. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.